President Trump's been in office for 3.5-ish weeks, and we have seen a lot get done in that time period. And one, of course, is the Department of Government Efficiency, maybe one of the more controversial but fun to watch departments that has been launched with Elon Musk. And there have been a lot of debate of whether actually they're getting stuff done. Are they calling things to attention? Is any of this real? Is what's happening here? The questions came up with our press secretary, with Karoline Leavitt. And Will, she had a pretty good response.
We're just wondering if there's some proof, evidence. Is the White House willing to share evidence of those fraud claims, or can Elon Musk come to the briefing room and share material evidence of what he's talking about?
Sure. I would love for Elon Musk to come to the briefing room. That's why we had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans at home. But I would say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to DOGE. President Trump and Elon Musk have been incredibly transparent on what DOGE is doing. There is an X account with the DOGE handle. They are tweeting out what they are doing on a daily basis. They have a website where they are posting the receipts of the contracts that they are reviewing and the payments that they have stopped from going out the door. The secretaries of our departments have stopped from going out the door.
This has been a very open door, it feels like, administration in general. The fact that you even had Elon Musk, again, the richest man in the world, taking unfiltered questions in the middle of the Oval Office with his son on his shoulders. It is a different presentation, a different world than what we were used to for the last 4 years. Some of the more outlandish ones and some of the ones you may not even know were happening. And Will, before this, he showed me pictures of what looked like a scene from Indiana Jones, like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark when they're putting in the Ark of the Covenant. This is in Pennsylvania, some climate-controlled cave where currently there are government employees by hand individually processing the retirement plans for our government workers. And it's happening in the most inefficient and archaic ways. And again, nothing against the people who are doing this. It's their jobs. It's the fact that we have decided as the government, as the United States government, to not keep things up to date and upgraded. It's like when you call the IRS, you have an issue with them. They ask you to fax something. Just the idea of people having access still to fax machines on the regular, that is not what's happening. Of course, when you see these, now there's a cave in Pennsylvania that they're doing this. There's a bunch of people right now as we speak in a cave in Pennsylvania by hand typing in all this information. How long did it say to process someone's retirement?
So it can take over a month to process retirement because it is 230 feet underground. This is a mine. There's 700 workers in this old limestone mine. It is 10,000 applications per month. By hand, they process. They have to fill out the information, process it, and the retirement process takes multiple months, not just a month. They are stored in manila envelopes and cardboard boxes in this mine. And I believe Elon Musk said they could literally do anything, and it would be more efficient than what they're currently doing. The fact that we are operating as if it is still the 1960s or 70s, having to hand fill out everything. It's all paper copies to process this. It's stored in an underground facility. It's a beautiful cave. Nothing against the cave itself.
But the cave is no longer offended at your...
The fact that we're sitting here in 2025, and this is how they're still processing retirement of U.S. government employees, which, newsflash, there's about to be a lot more retirements coming up, and we'll get to that later because of the buyout plan that President Trump has offered many of these federal workers. When the left says, are they even really saving money? Are they even really cutting these things? One, they are, but two, when you look at the ways that they can modernize the government, will save millions, billions of dollars for the U.S. taxpayer. A lot of these contracts are being canceled immediately, so they are not going to have to make good on these grants. But here's the problem. The left is trying to, and many of them are liberal states like New York, are suing President Trump and the administration to try and stop his funding freeze. They are trying to force Donald Trump's administration to continue to pay out. And what we have, and what the ACLJ did yesterday, is we filed in 3 different cases where the left is trying to stop the work of DOGE and the administration of making the country more efficient, saving taxpayers money. And one is the funding freeze out of Rhode Island, a district court in Rhode Island where New York, the state of New York, sued Trump. We filed there yesterday, and our amicus argues that the case is moot because the actual suit is based on a memo from the Office of Management and Budget, which they rescinded. However, this is a very activist judge at the district court level. He is the one who put a blanket order on funding freezes, which then he is trying to say the administration is ignoring. They're in contempt of court. This is why the left is saying there's a constitutional crisis, because he went even further than just the funding from USAID. He said all funding freezes need to stop, including things like the Mexico City policy, which is a pretty normal funding freeze that happens when a conservative president comes into office.
Usually it's one of those first day one or week one decisions where it's, like I said, but international funding of abortion, and usually it flip-flops immediately.
And so he's even trying to put that on hold. He also rejected briefs from outside groups yesterday. So our argument, he doesn't even want to hear, but we'll be ready at the appeals process on that one, even though we already tried to file yesterday and did file. He just said, I don't want to read these. But we had briefs accepted in two other cases. One was out of D.C. This is where a group was suing to stop DOGE from having access to the different agencies as they go around D.C. And we're arguing there, something the ACLJ has experts on, that there is a unitary executive, that the president is uniquely laid out in the Constitution as the branch of government. The executive branch is the president himself, and those agencies work for him. And we are arguing the president needs to be able to run the executive branch, not let courts or Congress step in and say, you can't run your agencies. And we also filed in New York against the state of New York there with a TRO that is in the same thing with DOGE. So your American Center for Law and Justice is getting involved here to ensure, as Ronnie was questioning, that these payments do stop, that we do stop just wasting Americans' taxpayer dollars, and also uphold the Constitution and allow the elected president to get in there and clean house.
And this funding, a lot of it is very divisive issues. When you really flip through some of the stuff that's been uncovered, it's not all just government funding to humanitarian causes. It's very specific. A lot of these causes you would not want your taxpayer dollars going to. And of course, that's true for always when there's a president or an administration that you don't really fully agree with in office. But some of these are just getting swept under the rug, because that's what happens in Washington, D.C. A lot of keeping your head down and your funding will come through. How many of these grants and things that USAID couldn't even find a website or any proof that they existed, but the funding was happening?